Three white police officers have won a discrimination case after an employment judge ruled that they were passed over for promotion because of their race, because they were white. The officers argue that Thames Valley Police had deliberately overlooked them to boost diversity in its senior ranks. And the tribunal heard that a superintendent from the force was told to make it happen by appointing an Asian sergeant to the rank of detective inspector. Now, is this two-tiered policing in action? Two-tiered recruitment indeed? Well, to discuss this, I'm now joined by the former Metropolitan Police Officer, Chris Hobbs. Chris, welcome to the show. Always a delight to have your company. We hear about two-tiered policing on the streets all the time. Chris, is this an example of two-tiered policing in the recruitment stage?
It's a good point, Martin. I'm always happy to talk about two-tier policing on the streets. So given the opportunity, I will go on and on about that. But this is clearly a massive embarrassment for Thames Valley. It almost defies belief that such a situation could be allowed to occur. And it's not only unfair, grossly unfair on the three officers, but of course the officer who was promoted, I'm assuming that promotion won't stand, that individual will be known throughout the force. That individual will have to put up with this cross to bear, as it were, for probably 2, 3, 4 years as that person in this particular case. So it's a massive mistake. We all want to see more black and Asian officers from minority groups in the police. But the bottom line is the wonderful Asian and black officers I used to work with basically want a level playing field. They don't want to be given preferential treatment. They want to get into the police and they want to get on in the police by virtue of their own ability, not by being given a favour because of their ethnicity. So, yeah, a huge mistake by Thames Valley. It'll be very interesting to see what their response is. And, of course, in terms of recruitment, that all forces are finding a bit difficult at the moment, that isn't going to do them an awful lot of favours for those who wish to apply to join, be they white or from an ethnic minority group.
Chris, do you think the problem here is that the police themselves self-flagellate? They wear hair shirts all the time. They call themselves institutionally racist. Report after report after report says that. As a consequence of that historical legacy, the yoke around their shoulders almost, are they now swinging the pendulum too far the opposite way? Are they becoming racist in the opposite way? They're being discriminatory, clearly and provably in this case, against white officers.
Well, we do have this one example, and often you get one example, don't you, where something goes wrong in policing, and straight away everything is smeared in policing. Every officer is sort of smeared. Every force perhaps is smeared. I think basically it's a warning shot across the bows. It's what can happen if a force tries too hard. As I say, we do want...
Chris, if I may intervene, I was contacted by a copper, a pal of mine in Nottinghamshire last night who said this routinely happens. It's commonplace. This is now the fabric of recruitment, the same as it is, by the way, in the RAF, where we saw people being turned away because they're white. Whether we like it or not, the vast majority of the country is white. The vast majority of coppers are white. This seems to be happening all the time. I know you're doing your best here, Chris. You're a loyal former police officer to stand up for the force, but I hear all the time, this is routine. This is now common. This is the new normal.
Well, if it is routine, and I'm not so sure it is, because the bottom line is you will get people unhappy with the promotion process where they've missed out, who may assume that this is what's happening. But I don't doubt that in some places, in some forces, this may happen. And fair play to the four officers, or the officers involved in this, who've actually, the three officers, who've stood up and said, no, we're not having this, because to take on your own force hierarchy is something really that has to be admired. And there's a saying in policing about doing someone's legs. You upset the force hierarchy, and somewhere along the line, that hierarchy will do your legs in some way, shape or form. I'd like to think those days are behind us. I'm not entirely sure perhaps they are. But maybe if this is happening in our forces, what's happened in Thames Valley will in fact encourage officers who feel they've been discriminated against for whatever reason to put their hands up, go to the Federation and say, right, we want to take our bosses on. And if there are recriminations, then again, the bosses need to be taken on again. But having said that, the quality of bosses varies hugely, and we have got some brilliant police bosses in the country, and we've got one or two perhaps maybe need to go back to school and learn a little bit about personnel management and managing their officers. But by and large, yeah, this is going to be a bit of a wake-up call without a doubt, and fair play to the officers. And I do feel for the officer who in fact was promoted when they shouldn't have been, because, as I say, that will stay with that officer for a few years.
OK, well, I'd like to say a big tip of the hat to Detective Inspector Philip Turner-Robson, Inspector Graham Horton and Custody Inspector Kirstine Bishop of Thames Valley Police. Well done to standing up to the system. And if you want to come on the show to talk about it, I'd be delighted to have any or all of you on. Thanks for joining us to talk about this. Former Met Police Officer Chris Hobbs, always a pleasure. Thank you.